Samsung Electronics management and labor union have agreed to put a tentative wage deal to a union vote starting Friday, effectively putting plans for a general strike on hold. And the dramatic agreement between Samsung and its labor union lifted Korean stocks more than 8% on Thursday, while upbeat earnings from Nvidia and optimism surrounding Samsung's robotics business further fueled investor sentiment. Also on Thursday, official campaigning for Korea's June 3rd local elections kicked off as rival parties launched full-scale 13-day campaigns alongside candidates in the capital region to rally voter support. With about 2 weeks left until the June 3rd local elections, candidates officially launched their campaigns today. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun takes a closer look at the ruling party's strategy here in Seoul.
Waves of blue swept through South Korea's capital region on Thursday as the ruling Democratic Party launched its sprint to polling day, the first day of official campaigning for the June 3rd local elections. In Seoul, Democratic Party mayoral candidate Chong launched his campaign on his political home turf in Seongdong-gu district as its former district chief, citing zero major safety incidents over 5 consecutive years and its emergence as one of Seoul's most economically vibrant areas. With 13 days of official campaigning now underway, Seoul mayoral candidate Chong is taking his message directly to voters, hitting the streets at some of the city's busiest hubs. Chong called the election a verdict on incumbent Mayor Oh Se-hoon's record, broken housing promises, a stagnating local economy, and a string of major safety incidents, and pledged to expand his success in Seongdong-gu district across the entirety of the city to change Seoul.
In a democracy, elections are simple. You keep the people who do their jobs well, and you replace the ones who don't.
Party leadership also rallied behind Gyeonggi-do Province gubernatorial candidate Choo Mi-ae, with chairman Chung Cheong-rae joining her on the trail after starting the day alongside Chung Won-ho. The DP is targeting a sweep in the first nationwide vote since President Lee Jae-myung took office, with the capital region among the most closely watched battlegrounds. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Now, meanwhile, Seoul mayoral candidate Oh Se-hoon of the main opposition People Power Party focused his first day of campaigning on reconstruction and redevelopment zones, underscoring his housing policy agenda. Our An Sung-jin reports.
Housing for all is one of the central messages from Seoul mayoral candidate Oh Se-hoon from the main opposition People Power Party. The slogan captured Oh's first campaign stop as the incumbent mayor chose Gangbuk-gu district as a symbolic starting point of his race. Highlighting his personal ties to the area through his alma mater, he stressed the urgency of reconstruction and redevelopment projects to improve living conditions in older neighborhoods across northern Seoul.
We aim to accelerate redevelopment efforts, including easing height restrictions and recognizing current floor area ratios to provide incentives for stalled projects.
Oh frames the election as a turning point for public policy, particularly on real estate and livelihood issues. Calling himself a protector of Seoul, Oh stresses his responsibility to work and ease the difficulties of people. He argued that rising housing costs have placed a growing burden on ordinary citizens and said the vote would serve as an opportunity to demand policy changes that better reflect economic realities. With election campaigning just beginning, the incumbent mayor is focusing on housing issues and welfare policies to grab swing voters. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics and its largest labor union reached a tentative agreement late last night, bringing a sigh of relief not only to the local economy but to the company's global tech supply chain. For a deeper look into the details and their economic implications, our correspondent Park Jun-han joins us here in the studio. Welcome back, Jun-han.
Good evening, Tammy. It's good to be here.
So, Jun-han, let's recap the breakthrough from last night first.
Absolutely, Tammy. So the core of the agreement centers on a fundamental restructuring of the Samsung rewards its employees. The move comes as Samsung Electronics benefits from the so-called AI memory supercycle, which has boosted the company's operating profits several-fold from the previous year. While the company will keep its traditional excess profit incentive system, it is introducing a brand new special management bonus for the Device Solutions, or DS, the company's semiconductor and electronic components divisions. According to the finalized terms, this new bonus pool will be funded using 10.5% of agreed business performance earnings, and critically, there is no ceiling on the total payout. 40% of this pool will be distributed equally as a baseline to all DS division employees. The remaining 60% will be paid out based on the individual performance of each specific business unit. To put this into numbers, if Samsung hits its annual operating profit forecast of around 300 trillion Korean won, or roughly $200 billion, this special bonus pool alone will climb to about 31.5 trillion won. This means every single employee in the Device Solution secures a guaranteed base payout of roughly 160 million won, regardless of their unit's performance. For those in high-performance departments like memory, the total annual package could jump up to 600 million won, which is about $400,000.
Junan, those are some staggering figures. Now, how will these massive bonuses be distributed to the workers now?
Right, so the payouts will be made entirely in after-tax company stock. Well, employees can sell 1/3 of the shares immediately, while the remaining 2/3 will be restricted from being sold. 1/3 after a year, and the remaining 1/3 for 2 years. This entire framework is locked in for the next 10 years, provided profit targets are met.
You know, to avoid the talks from collapsing, there must have been some intense arguments and pressure, and also behind the scenes efforts. Tell us more about state mediation efforts.
Right, Tammy. So this agreement was the result of coordinated efforts from the government and political leadership. Talks had actually broken down earlier on from Monday through Wednesday afternoon under the National Labor Relations Commission's mediation. Then, from the late afternoon, the labor minister himself stepped in. Let's take a listen to what Labor Minister Kim Young-hoon had to say after the deal was sealed 90 minutes before strike.
We deeply appreciate Samsung Electronics management and labor on behalf of the government for continuing talks until the very end and reaching a tentative agreement through direct negotiations.
On the company's side, Samsung Electronics head of Device Solutions Division Chun Young-hyun shared an internal message on Thursday, urging employees to leave the past conflicts behind and move forward as one. He also expressed his gratitude to the union for reaching a compromise and encouraged members to support the agreement. From Friday, Samsung's union members will begin a 6-day voting process starting this Friday, and the deal will be officially finalized once a majority of participating members approve it.
I see. Well, the deal has eased concerns to the Korea's economy and also the global tech supply chain, as a potential strike could have posed some significant risks to the production and as well as exports, right?
Right, Tammy. So actually the risks were pretty much prominent. An internal report from the Bank of Korea revealed that if the union's proposed 18-day strike had actually moved forward, it could have slashed Korea's real GDP growth by up to 0.5 percentage points. Samsung Electronics alone accounted for an overwhelming 22.8% of Korea's total exports in the first quarter of this year. Also, a professor of materials science said it was crucial to avoid a factory shutdown. And let's take a listen.
If the facilities are shut down and restarted, power consumption rises significantly. Production could be delayed for months, and defect rates may increase. Since semiconductor production runs continuously, any disruption would likely cause losses.
As the world's leading supplier of memory chips, any prolonged halt in Samsung's production lines could pose an immediate risk to the global technological supply chain. Ultimately, the agreement helped protect Samsung's long-term industrial competitiveness while also preventing billions in potential economic losses for Korea.
Indeed. Let's see how the vote turns out from tomorrow. Chunan, thanks for the coverage.
Always a pleasure, Dami.
And news of the wage deal between Samsung Electronics and its labor union was welcomed by investors today, helping drive a sharp rally in the local stock market on Thursday. Cha Yun-kyung has more.
Korean stock markets extended their strong rebound on Thursday. After experiencing high volatility with a sharp drop following its intraday passing above the 8,000 mark for the first time last Friday, the KOSPI recorded its largest gain of the day. Investor sentiment appears to have improved as Samsung Electronics management and its union reached a dramatic agreement on wage negotiations. Additionally, an overnight tech-led rally on Wall Street, along with a stabilization in U.S. Treasury yields and international oil prices, also fueled the market's upward momentum. On Thursday, the benchmark KOSPI opened at 7,486.37, up 277.42 points, or 3.85%. It then further extended gains, closing at 7,815.59. Meanwhile, the Korea Exchange activated a trading halt for 5 minutes after the KOSPI 200 futures jumped more than 5% from the previous close at around 9:24 a.m. after the opening bell. A buy-side sidecar is triggered when the KOSPI 200 futures index increases 5% or more for at least 1 minute. Minutes later, the tech-heavy KOSDAQ market also triggered a buy-side sidecar, with its 150 futures index soaring more than 6%. This is the first time since early April that both markets have seen simultaneous buy-side sidecars. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
The government on Thursday froze fuel price ceilings for a fourth consecutive round amid stable oil supplies, while extending fuel tax cuts for another 2 months in an effort to ease inflationary pressure. Jo Young-eun has the details.
Fuel tax cuts in South Korea will remain as they are through the end of July, as the government moves to ease inflationary pressure and reduce the burden on households. The decision was made during a task force meeting on Thursday.
We will extend the fuel tax cuts, originally set to expire at the end of this month, through the end of July, and make every effort to ease the public's fuel cost burdens.
Under the plan originally set to expire at the end of May, the current 15% cut on gasoline and the 25% reduction on diesel will both be extended. In price terms, the cuts translate to a reduction of 122 won per liter for gasoline, 145 won per liter for diesel. In particular, a larger reduction has been applied to diesel, which is considered essential for industries and logistics. The government first introduced the fuel tax cuts at the current levels on March 27th, following the outbreak of the conflict in the Middle East, up from the previous 7 to 10% range.
Uncertainty surrounding the Middle East conflict continues. Producer prices are rising, upward pressure on consumer inflation is growing. The government will remain highly vigilant, restore market order, and do its utmost to stabilize prices and ease the burden on people's livelihoods.
Meanwhile, the fuel price cap will remain at 1,934 won per liter for retailers, around $1.28, and diesel would stay at 1,923 won. Household kerosene will stay at 1,530 won per liter. The government's sixth fuel price cap will take effect at midnight on May 22nd. In addition, the government decided to extend the adjustment cycle from every 2 weeks to 4, considering the continued instability in the Middle East and international oil prices. Jo Young-eun, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has called for tangible outcomes ahead of the first anniversary since taking office. This came as he invited members of presidential advisory committees and councils to the Blue House on Thursday. The president added that the past year was dedicated to fixing a system that has been abnormal. And from now on, the focus should be on policies that can actually help improve people's livelihoods. He was briefed on such policies by the committees and discussed the future policy plans. Israel has released 2 South Korean activists captured while they were on board a humanitarian aid flotilla bound for Gaza in waters near the Strip. The Blue House expressed deep regret over the incident, but said it highly appreciated and welcomed their immediate release. It added that the Korean activists were immediately deported without being confined in a detention facility following the government's diplomatic efforts. Israel reportedly said it hoped the incident would not affect its relationship with Seoul and hoped for the development its bilateral ties. This follows strong criticism by President Lee Jae-myung the previous day over the incident. U.S. President Donald Trump said he's giving diplomacy with Iran a little more time, signaling he may hold off on any new military action in the Middle East for the next few days. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Wednesday that Washington is prepared to launch further strikes on Tehran if Iran refuses to agree to a peace deal, though he suggested he could wait a few more days before making a final decision.
But what I like to do, if I can save war by waiting a couple of days, if I can save people being killed by waiting a couple of days, I think it's a great thing to do.
Speaking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, Trump said the situation remains on the borderline and warned that events could escalate rapidly if negotiations fail. He added that the U.S. is fully prepared for military action, but still hopes diplomacy can prevent a wider conflict. Trump also repeated that the United States will not allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon, saying Washington is now in the final stages of the crisis. Iran responded with fresh warnings of its own. The Revolutionary Guards said any renewed attack on Iran would trigger a broader regional war extending beyond the Middle East. Tehran has also launched a new Persian Gulf Strait Authority aimed at controlling maritime traffic through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, diplomatic efforts appear to be continuing behind the scenes. Iranian media reported that Tehran recently received a new U.S. ceasefire proposal through Pakistani mediators and is currently reviewing the document. According to Iran's Tasnim news agency, the latest exchange followed a 14-point proposal previously submitted by Tehran. Iranian officials said no final decision has been made. Iran has also laid out conditions for future talks, including the release of frozen overseas assets and an end to what it describes as a U.S. maritime blockade. Tehran, meanwhile, stressed that it would not negotiate under military pressure. Separately, South Korea's foreign ministry said a vessel operated by a South Korean shipping company safely passed through the Strait of Hormuz, marking the first such transit since the outbreak of the U.S.-Iran conflict. Seoul said it worked through multiple diplomatic channels with Iran and neighboring countries to ensure the ship's safe passage. Officials said more than 20 crew members were aboard the vessel, among them fewer than 10 South Koreans. The ship reportedly traveled along a route designated by Iran, and no transit fee was paid to Iran. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, Seoul's defense ministry is reportedly weighing the possibility of assuming wartime operational control from the U.S. military by 2027. Lee Eun-jin has the details.
South Korea sees the final stage for the three-stage transfer of wartime operation control to be completed within a year. According to Defense Ministry sources, the operation control that is currently in the second stage of verifying full operation capability, or FOC, could be validated by the end of the year. The final step is the full mission capability, or FMC verification, for which the evaluation and verification can be conducted simultaneously. This suggests that if the Allies agree to set 2027 as the earliest possible year for the transition and complete the steps, the transition could, in theory, be possible in 2027. A Defense Ministry official told reporters on Wednesday that if the target year is decided during this year's FOC validation, the procedure will move straight on to the final phase. However, whether such a scenario could be realized remains uncertain due to differing views between Seoul and Washington on the timeline. While the South Korean government is strongly committed to achieving the transition as quickly as possible, U.S. military authorities have taken a more conservative approach regarding whether all conditions have been met. While a roadmap for the transition was not approached during the senior-level defense dialogue held in Washington last week, the Allies are pushing to establish the roadmap before this year's Security Consultative meeting scheduled for October. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
The number of foreign travelers to South Korea during the first 4 months of this year hit an all-time high of over 6.7 million. According to the Culture Ministry on Thursday, the figure is also up 21% on year. Now, in April alone, the number of foreign travelers to Korea soared almost 20% on year, driven by visitors from neighboring China and Japan. The ministry added that April arrivals were not affected by higher fuel surcharges, as many had booked their trips before the conflict in the Middle East. Meanwhile, credit card spending by foreign tourists also hit a record high of over $1.2 billion in April, the highest monthly sum since 2018. Next month, the BTS's World Tour Arirang concert in Busan will be screened in more than 38,000 theaters across over 80 countries. BTS's agency Big Hit Music said the concert will be shown through live viewing, a real-time broadcast of a live performance streamed directly to venues such as movie theaters. Now, due to time differences, audiences in North and South America and Europe will be able to catch the stream 1 or 2 days after the live concert. Now, here in South Korea, the concert will be live streamed at Korea's 3 major cinemas, CGV, Lotte Cinema, and Megabox. The concert will take place at Busan Asiad Main Stadium, the same venue where BTS held its concert in 2022. South Korea is solidifying its position as a global hub for climate action. On Thursday here in Seoul, 2 major international climate bodies, the Global Green Growth Institute and the Green Climate Fund, held their first ever joint conference since their establishment in Korea. Our Chong files this report.
A GGGI-GCF joint conference marks a new level of cooperation between green policy design and financial execution. For the first time since they were founded, the Global Green Growth Institute and the Green Climate Fund have shared a single stage, with the agenda aiming to use South Korea as a base to launch concrete climate projects in developing countries.
Climate change does not respect national borders, and it does not care about political views. I have been speaking out repeatedly many times around the world. There is not a single country in this world, however powerful, however resourceful, no country can do it alone.
This is happening at a moment when international cooperation is more fragile than it has been in a generation. Stepping back on multilateral climate action is the wrong instinct. Korea has put its weight and capital behind global climate action, and their leadership at home is widely recognized and applauded.
Leaders at the conference emphasized taking immediate action rather than holding endless debates. GGGI has now grown to 55 member states and helped secure $4 billion in green investments last year. For the GCF, it has already committed $20 billion to 353 projects worldwide, reaching nearly 1.8 billion people in developing countries.
GCF is about finance, and GGGI is about implementation. When they work together, we can scale up and speed up climate actions for the world. By doing Green Transformation Initiative, AI Transformation Initiative, Korea will become a next generation global hub.
Additionally, through the Korea Green New Deal Trust Fund, domestic institutions like the Korea Development Bank are actively lowering investment risks abroad, including a $100 million energy efficiency project in Indonesia. Future joint efforts will also focus on green AI and the global voluntary carbon market. Thursday's joint conference shows that South Korea is no longer just a host country providing office space, but an active architect creating a new ecosystem for global climate action. 정혜림, 아리랑 뉴스.
The rain that began yesterday has noticeably cooled temperatures nationwide today. Most of the rain will taper off by tonight, but light showers may linger into early tomorrow morning along parts of the East Coast and in mountainous areas. Most regions will be sunny tomorrow, but parts of Jeju Island may see around 5 millimeters between tomorrow morning and afternoon. And UV levels will be very high in most parts of the country, so please wear your sunscreen and avoid outdoor activities during the daytime where possible. Although today marked Toman, the seasonal term signaling the doorstep of summer, cool conditions persisted throughout the day. Temperatures will start to climb again from tomorrow. Tomorrow, most areas will see lows at around 15 degrees Celsius. Seoul will start the day at 15 degrees, Daegu at 15 degrees, Busan at 16 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 26 degrees, Daejeon at 25 degrees, Gwangju at 26 degrees. By Monday, highs will soar close to 30 degrees, bringing back summer-like heat. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.